Out of Dallas, Adam Schefter, what's going on?
Well, Laura, the Chicago Bears have sought permission to interview the Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy. They have yet to get a response from the Cowboys about whether the Cowboys are willing to allow Mike McCarthy to interview for the Bears job this week or next. Now, if the Cowboys don't respond, the Bears simply can wait until next week when that exclusive negotiating window expires and interview McCarthy then. But for the time being, the Bears are awaiting a response to see if they can interview Mike McCarthy this week. And I think it obviously puts a little bit of pressure on both sides here, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys, to try to figure out what they're doing, because there is another party that wants to speak with Mike McCarthy about their vacant head coaching job. And the Dallas Cowboys, again, they've gone back and forth on the McCarthy issue. He is in the last year of his contract, but the fact that there is another team reaching out to speak to the existing head coach of another team is in a unique, unusual situation that we certainly don't see. There are a lot of slips that are put in, but very rarely do they come with the circumstances surrounding this particular situation.
Yeah, Adam, this feels like it can't be something that happens often. It's not something I remember happening. You would know better than me. Just quickly for clarification, who grants the permission for somebody to be interviewed by another team?
Well, the Dallas Cowboys would have to sign off on that, whether that is Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones or Will McClay or whoever it is runs that organization. Obviously, Jerry Jones would have to sign off on anything, but the Cowboys would have to grant permission to the Bears for the Bears to interview Mike McCarthy. Now, they could say, we deny permission. We're not going to allow that this week, and that would allow Dallas to sit down with Mike McCarthy this week if that's what the Cowboys wanted. But I think that's what's interesting about this. It provides a little bit of a window into how the Cowboys might be feeling at this moment about Mike McCarthy. Now, Jerry Jones said he wouldn't stop anybody from talking to another team, but the Bears still have not gotten a response about whether they can or cannot interview Mike McCarthy this week.
All right, thanks to Adam. The latest there, of course, I'm sure if we get a response during our time here, we'll find out from Adam. Marcus, what does this make you think? There's no response yet from the Cowboys, right? But I don't feel like we ever hear about anyone denying permission to go interview. He's still the head coach of the Cowboys.
Well, what it speaks to me is that Jerry wants it to go the way he wants it to go. Like, I hear Chef that Jerry going to make the decision, whether Mike talked to Chicago or not, or whether, that operating window opens. But what it also signals to me, and I know, MK, what people have said this year about Mike McCarthy. This dude led the top 3 offense year before last, though.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it that he need to revamp and do some new things. Y'all, me and RC being out on Monday Night Countdown, and I've asked the question because a lot of people always ask me about the Cowboys. You would be shocked at how much respect Mike McCarthy has in this league.
Yeah.
And how many people think he's a really good head coach.
Totally.
And how he sets the temperature of a locker room. Now, I didn't know that much about Mike McCarthy. Like, I really didn't. I knew he was in Green Bay. They had a lot of success when I was in Dallas and all of that. The really good team. Obviously, Aaron was there. But I didn't know much about, like, how the league. And they both can tell you, and Mina knows this because she talks to a lot of people as well. It's really about how your peers talk about you. It's really about how guys in the coaching profession, general managers, players that play for you, that's the biggest kind of kudos to what you've been able to do. And I know this living in Dallas. Them dudes like Mike McCarthy a lot. There's a high level of respect for him in that locker room. I'll be interested to see what happens.
I go back to what we were talking about with respect to whether the Cowboys should keep him.
Yeah.
I do think he is a good coach. I do think he is well liked. I just don't know how you can watch the Cowboys offense this year and feel good about that offense for your young quarterback, especially because the most important thing for the Chicago Bears, the only thing, you have to make Caleb's life easier. You have to take some off of his plate. You're going to have to rebuild a lot of things that happened this season. And whenever I watch the Cowboys, I did not think this makes the quarterback's life easier, Dan. In fact, I felt the opposite most of the time watching them.
Oh, I was the person who said I thought they put their quarterback in the hardest position as anybody in the NFL. I mean, it was only about, hey, you got to go execute at a high level. They're professionals. There's what they're paid for. Mike McCarthy's scheme, as presently constructed, is so far behind 2024 football. When you watch last night's game and you go and see what Detroit does or Minnesota does, and you watch this weekend what a Washington does with their offense, there's no way that you sit there and say, we're going into the game on the same playing field. I've said this. If you want to hire Mike McCarthy because you like his organizational skills and his leadership skills and his ability to relate to his players, have at it. But he better come with a new age offensive system and a new age offensive coordinator. That's my philosophy on it.
RC, is there something to that? Maybe some of these organizations are looking at, a young OC type that goes and becomes a head coach and it doesn't work out as well. And they're saying, just get a figurehead with experience who can coach. I shouldn't call him a figurehead. He can coach, right? And then you bring somebody who can change the offense?
I think when you failed already, it's easier to go to get something that you feel is proven. You feel like Mike McCarthy has proven that he can delegate. Mike McCarthy has proven that he can organize. He's done it at two separate organizations, which historically are great organizations in this league. But the big thing for the Chicago Bears is, how does whomever is the head coach communicate and relate to Caleb Williams? And I'm not saying what you do from a play calling standpoint. How do you put him in the most comfortable position possible? And if it is get Mike McCarthy but have someone else that's utilized offensively to put him in the right places from X's and O's, you have to do that. Schematically, it's not a fit to me. But if you want to have a mature presence at the coaching position, then that's somebody I think you should talk to.
So again, the reporting from Adam Schefter is that the Bears have requested to interview Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys have yet to respond. We'll wait and see if they do. The other name that the Bears are interviewing is Ben Johnson. These two are very different. Dan, if you're hiring as the Bears, which one, without being in the interviews, makes more sense to you?
I mean, if I were the Bears, I would be interviewing Mike Vrabel or Aaron Glenn.
And not even Ben Johnson?
I don't think Ben Johnson's a great fit there. I've said this. I think, one, that's one of those cities that you have to play a certain brand of ball. And you just, the identity of it has to be a mauling philosophy.
What if you just got to win, Dan?
No, I agree. But, you know what I'm saying? And, Ben Johnson, I think the thing that, at least my perspective is, the reason it's so perfect with Jared Goff is this is a rhythm-based offense. He's a rhythm-based quarterback. Everything is about a metronome. Bang, 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 bang. That's not Caleb. Now, could Caleb get there? For sure. But we don't know if Ben Johnson can develop a quarterback. He got Jared 5 or 6 years into his career. I just don't think it's the perfect marriage schematically.
So the only thing that scares me is what sort of human he is at the position, right? When you have a person like Dan Campbell that's such a strong personality, you never need to set the tone of your room. He sets the tone of every single room in that building. The thing that Sean McVay could do was when he took over for Jeff Fisher, he could set the tone in the room.
Like this.
We've seen the same thing with Kevin O'Connell. Are they great play callers? Yes.
That's a great
but they're
point.
great people that
those guys are unicorns.
It lays more in the vein of a Dan Quinn hire in Washington. Like, because we all
run the organization.
And we all would have screamed, get the OC for the young quarterback. But sometimes you got to deviate and let that side be that side and have a guy that can run the whole thing.
Okay, we'll put a pin in this and get y'all's thoughts a little bit more in a moment. But Adam, I want to bring more from you about what the Bears' plans are at this point with their hiring process.
Well, Laura, you're starting to hear about some teams coming forth with their intentions about who they are interested in talking about. We talked about the fact that they've requested an interview with the Cowboys head coach, current head coach, Mike McCarthy. They've reached out to speak with Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. They also put in 2 other notable requests today. One to interview the Vikings defensive coordinator, Brian Flores. Another to interview the Steelers offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. And again, this gives you an idea into how some of these teams are thinking. Both Brian Flores and Arthur Smith have been head coaches before. Clearly, that seems to be something that the Bears are looking for here, considering that they've reached out to Mike McCarthy and Arthur Smith and Brian Flores, men who have done that job before. Now, Ben Johnson's credentials are so highly thought of that clearly he's in a different category, but they obviously are valuing experience as they seek their next head coach to hire to coach up Caleb Williams.
Yeah, that's interesting. Common denominator there, certainly, Adam. Mina, if you're the Cowboys, do you grant this permission to go do the interview? And if you do, that basically means you're saying, like,
yeah, if I know that he's out the door, then yeah, obviously. And frankly, they should know by now.
Yes.
This shouldn't be,
It's always
You've had
something,
this entire season to think about that. You're not a competitive team. So I would definitely consider it if I'm Dallas. And like, here's what I'll say about these coaching hires. There's no way of knowing who's going to be good at this, guys. Like Dan Campbell, I didn't criticize it, but I didn't know he was going to be Dan Campbell. I thought Doug Peterson was a fantastic hire in Jacksonville. Yeah. Obviously, that hasn't gone wrong. We can pick a guy because he's a brilliant play caller or because he's perceived as a good leader, but honestly, I think this is the hardest thing to project in the entire NFL who's going to be good.
No matter who you hire, there has to be alignment. We just did the Ravens game this weekend when the overall things, when you meet with their head, everybody is so aligned. The owner, the general manager, the head coach, the staff, the players. It's everybody aligned, and that's where the NFL misses far too often.
Their head coach cares so much that he's going to the sideline to push his receivers a little closer to the warmer. Like, that's the detail of John Harbaugh.
That's why they win.
You just don't see everywhere.
I would love that.
I know, me too. I was like, push me there, please. Coming up next.